The jury had just retired after hearing closing arguments from both the defense and the prosecution. It was quite late, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so the judge ordered the jury back to the hotel, where they were sequestered for the 2-week trial, which was the culmination of an investigation that had lasted nearly a year. The defendant was taken back to the Tarrant County Correctional Center in Fort Worth, and nothing more happened until Monday, when the jury was scheduled to reconvene. So I decided to walk back to my room at the Hilton Garden Inn in downtown Dallas, stopping at a bar on the way for a beer and a bite to eat. I had just finished my burger and was halfway through my beer when I heard a woman's voice behind me. "Hey, cowboy, buy a girl something to drink?" she asked. I turned and looked at the source of the question. She looked familiar, and then it hit me. "Ashley? Ashley Marks, is that really you?" I asked. "Yes, that's me," she replied, flashing a smile that could melt the polar cap. I invited her to sit down and waved to the waitress. "My God, how long ago was that? 16, 17 years? How's it going?" I asked. "I think it's been 17 years, she replied. Ashley was one of my best friends in high school, along with Steve Jenkins and Jolene Carter. Together, we were known as the Four Musketeers. But that all changed when Ashley's dad got a job in Austin during our senior year. I haven't seen or heard from her since. "I'm doing well," she said. "Went to college at the University of Texas, graduated, got married, divorced, and now work as a reporter for the Austin Statesman newspaper." "Wow, you've had a very interesting life. What happened?" I asked. She shrugged her shoulders. "I was married," she said, emphasizing the I. "Unfortunately, he wasn't married, or at least he had trouble remembering his vows. After I caught him cheating a third time, I said I'd had enough and kicked his city ass to the curb," she said. "I think he ended up running a McDonald's in Beaumont." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "I know what it's like, believe me. So what brought you to Big D?" "I've been covering the Jenkins trial for the last couple weeks. What a mess it's been. I watched you testify the other day," she said. "I feel very sorry for Jolene. Whatever her faults, she didn't deserve to die like that." I answered nothing to that. No, Jolene didn't deserve to die like that. I would have preferred something more torturous, like being burned at the stake. But that possibility, like so many other things, was denied me by the man I once considered my best friend. "So how's it going, Bill Jennings?" she asked, interrupting my train of thought. "About as well as expected, considering the last 16 years of my life have been a total sham," I replied. "At least you have kids," she said. I nodded. "Yeah, I guess so," I said. "They're mine, at least legally. You may not be the donor, but trust me, you're their father in every way that matters," she said. "You're probably right," I said, "but it still doesn't make me feel any better." "Look, I have a confession to make to you," she began. I looked at her, wondering what she had up her sleeve. "You know, every reporter in this courtroom is going to want to know your story. I'd like to be the one to tell it, if that's okay with you," she said. "I know you probably have a lot of trust issues, and I totally understand, but no one knows you like I do. Look, if it helps, we'll sign a contract. You give me exclusive rights to your story, and I protect you from the wolves. Kind of like a publicist. I'm not publishing anything without letting you see it first. My editor has already approved it, and I want it done right." Deep down, I knew she was right. Reporters from every major news outlet in the country, CNN, Fox News, Associated Press, you name it. I was even contacted by a few small but well-known bloggers. It was all so overwhelming. Something told me I could trust her, so I made up my mind. "Okay, Ashley," I said. "You made a deal, so how exactly is this going to happen? Do we do it here? Do we move it to my hotel room or yours? What do you mean?" "Well," she said, "I've wanted to see the old homestead for a long time. It's only 2 or 2.5 hours west of here by car. It's still pretty early and the jury doesn't start deliberating until Monday morning. So we have the weekend off. Why don't we drive back and you can show me where all this happened? You'll give me all the details on the way, and after we get there, I can talk to your kids and parents, if that's okay with you." I thought for a moment before agreeing. It would be a nice break from the lawsuit, and I thought it would be nice to show Ashley around the neighborhood and maybe repair the relationship. "Sounds good," I said. "Where are you staying?" "I'm at the Hilton, around the corner. What about you?" she asked. "Same thing. Do you want to grab a couple things first before we hit the road? She nodded, and we agreed to meet at my truck in the parking lot. You can't miss it, I told her. It's a big blue cab. It's still the same Bill. He probably has the biggest pickup truck in the state. Give me a half hour after we get there so I can change into something more comfortable and grab a few things, okay? She asked. I agreed and we hit the road. The sun had already dipped below the horizon when we pulled onto Highway 20 leading to Abilene. I was glad for that since I hate driving in the sun. Ashley had changed into her professional reporter outfit and was now wearing a knee-length denim skirt and a white Western-style blouse. She seemed as beautiful now as she had in high school. I also got a good look at her shapely legs and felt the familiar excitement below her waist. She smiled. I know what you're thinking, cowboy, she said. You do? I asked. You're thinking something along the lines of, why didn't I sleep with Ashley instead of Jolene? I laughed. Is that what your honed reporter instinct tells you? I asked. No, the way you're checking out my legs, like you did back in high school, she said. I bet I thought I'd forgotten about that. Feet like that are hard to forget, I told her. I always loved looking at her legs, especially when she was wearing her cheerleading uniform. She smiled and pulled out a tape recorder. So tell me, Ashley, is there a Mr. Right anywhere in Austin? No, she answered. Since the divorce, I've focused almost entirely on work. As you can imagine, I've had trust issues with men, and so far I haven't met anyone I really want to spend time with. Sorry to hear that, I said. She laughed. Somehow I doubt that, she said. Damn those reporter instincts. Anyway, what do you say we start this little road show? Yeah, okay, I said. She put the recorder on the dashboard, making sure it wouldn't fall off. You don't mind if I record this, do you? She asked. I shook my head. Not at all, I said. I want you to do it right. I took a sip of my coffee and thought for a moment before I started. Ashley, as you know, Steve and Jolene and I were very friendly in high school. After you left, it was mostly just the three of us. I asked Jolene to marry me right after graduation and she said yes. Steve and I went into the Marines right after high school. We both went to San Diego for boot camp and even ended up in the same platoon. Jolene and I agreed that we would get married after I finished my training. After boot camp, Steve and I broke up. He went into the infantry and I went into computer electronics. He was assigned to Camp Pendleton and I was assigned to Quantico, Virginia. Anyway, about a month or so later, Steve hurt his knee badly and got medical leave. You notice he still walks around with a slight limp? Couldn't they give him a desk job? Ashley asked. No, it doesn't work that way, I said. Everyone in the Corps is a basic marksman, regardless of their MO or specialty. Even clerks and computer guys like me have to meet the physical requirements to participate in combat. Steve came home, and his father pulled some strings to get him a job with the county. That's right. His father was a county commissioner, wasn't he? Ashley asked. I nodded. Yes, until the day he died. That's how Steve was first elected. I guess the voters thought highly enough of old man Jenkins to elect his son. I graduated from high school, came home and got married. Steve was my best man. I found out later that he was also Jolene's best man, if you know what I mean. What a bitch, Ashley said. I ended up on the West Coast, and almost 9 months after we were married, Brian was born. About a year later, I was sent to Okinawa for a year unaccompanied. We came home for a month, and I let Jolene and Brian stay in my house, which I inherited from my grandparents. We decided it would be easier for them to have both of our parents around. After that deployment, I came home, packed up Jolene and Brian's things, and we left for my next duty station, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Just under 9 months later, Jessica was born. Jolene took the pregnancy hard and insisted that I have a vasectomy. She argued that if we ever wanted another child, I could always cancel the surgery. And I agreed. Although, if I had known then what I know now, things would have been very different. Looking at the pictures, it's easy to see Steve's features in the kids, Ashley said. Didn't you notice that when they were born? That's a perfectly fair question, I said. You might remember that when we were younger, people often said that Steve and I could pass for brothers. We have the same hair color and the same eyes. Hell, we even have the same earlobes. No, they both looked a lot like me when they were little, and they both have their mother's eyes and nose. It wasn't until they got much older that I started to notice the resemblance. When we get to my house, you'll see the baby pictures. Anyway, I finished my service in the course and we all came home. Dad brought me to his computer store and introduced me to all the other guys. I went straight to work for him, and it was great. Unfortunately, I had to do a lot of traveling to do it. Did it ever bother Jolene? Ashley asked. I shook my head. No, just the opposite. She seemed to enjoy my customer service and networking. Dad had clients in Dallas, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Amarillo, everywhere. Heck, we even had clients in Houston and Oklahoma City. Jolene thought it was great that I was building such a large client base, I said. In fact, my absence gave her all the time she needed to bring Steve into our home and into our bed. Of course, I found that out much later. So she was actually doing Steve in your marital bed? Ashley asked. Yes, the whole time, I said. That's why I burned her in the mattress after she was shot. I don't blame you, Ashley said. I burned a few other things too, like the couch and chair Steve used, I said. Jolene's wedding dress burned too. Ashley wrinkled her nose. So Steve was a regular guest at your house, Ashley said. Yes, so much so that he even had his own chair. I didn't mind at the time as I considered him a friend. He would come over to my house, especially on Sunday after church. We'd start watching the game and he'd almost always fall asleep in that damn chair. The kids started calling him Uncle Steve, too, almost at Jolene's insistence. It annoyed me at the time, but now I know why. Hey, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind heating up my coffee. Are you ready for a pit stop? I asked. Ashley turned off the recorder. Sure, she said. I can take a smoke break if that's okay with you. I nodded and turned toward the next exit. After taking a break, we were back on the highway, heading towards Abilene. Ashley pulled out a voice recorder and placed it on the dashboard. So all this time you didn't know Jolene was cheating on you with Steve? She asked. No, I guess I was the typical clueless husband. She never disrespected me, at least to my face, and there was never even a hint of sex in the house when I wasn't home. I guess they've gotten pretty careful over the years, I said. When did you find out? She asked. About a year ago, I was sent to Los Angeles for a month-long training course on an ERP package we had to maintain for a client in San Antonio. Jolene and the kids worked very hard, writing and calling me every day. One weekend I got an email from Brian. Jolene and Steve took the kids to the lake to fish, and he caught a pretty big bass. And he sent me a picture, I said. I pulled out my phone and held it out to Ashley, indicating to her which album to open. In the picture I was looking for, Brian was holding a large fish. Steve was sitting next to him. Jolene was standing on the other side of Brian, putting her left hand on Steve's right shoulder. What do you see in this picture? I asked Ashley. Oh my God, she exclaimed. They look so much alike. They even have the same dimples. Yeah, I said. I noticed that too. Now look at Jolene's left hand. What stands out about her? Ashley unfolded the photo and enlarged it with her fingers. I don't see any rings, she said. Right, I said. No way you'd guess where they were. Ashley threw me a perplexed look. I led her over to the folder where Jessica's pictures were kept. Look in there until you see the ashtray, I said. Okay, I got it, she said. Zoom in on the picture and tell me what you see. Her eyes widened as she enlarged the image. Is that what I think it is? She asked. I nodded. Yes, the same ring I put on her finger when I married her. And also my great-grandmother's wedding ring. And guess whose asses are in that tray? Let me guess, Steve's, she said. Oh, that's not all, I told her. That ashtray is not only in our bedroom, it's on my nightstand, which means Steve was in our bed, probably with Jolene. Ashley began to cry. How could she do that to you? And you're saying Jessica sent this? She asked. Yes, I said. She often helped my mom clean the house, which meant cleaning and wiping down all the ashtrays. She saw it before they left and took a picture and sent it to me. She was very upset. I can imagine, Ashley said. Did she say anything to Jolene? Not that I know of. I wrote her back and asked her not to say anything to my mom. I also asked her to take the rings out, put them in her pocket, and mail them to me. Ashley laughed. I bet Jolene got busted for that, she said. Yeah, Jessica was acting like a real trooper the whole time. She did everything I asked, but Jolene was going crazy trying to find those rings. She even invited Steve to help her search. They went through the garbage, opened siphons under sinks and such. Too bad I wasn't around to write it all down. And what did you do? Ashley asked. My course ended Friday afternoon, so I left right away and came home Saturday night. Jolene met me outside in tears because she had lost her grandmother's ring. She was completely out of it. I asked all the usual questions. Did you look everywhere? Did you put it on the sink? And so on. She kept insisting that she had looked everywhere. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled them out. I thought she was going to faint. How did you have them? She asked. I just said a trusted friend found them and mailed them to me. I didn't mention Jessica because I realized she'd tear him apart. I just told her, don't put them in the ashtray the next time Steve comes over. That was priceless. Her eyes got as big as saucers and she started crying, telling me all the usual crap about loving me. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, seeing the look on Ashley's face. I didn't mean to swear. It's okay, she said. I've heard and said much worse, believe me. So tell me, what did you do then? Well, that's when I pretty much realized it was over between us, I said. I didn't have any real evidence of them cheating, no pictures or anything like that. I decided to start investigating and get everything ready. The first thing I wanted to do was take DNA tests. I needed to find out if these were my children. I also purchased surveillance equipment from our store, high-definition motion-activated cameras, voice-activated audio recorders, everything I needed. I even bugged our cell phone. Everything was recorded on my home server and stored in the cloud. I waited until she left to go shopping and set it all up. The DNA was pretty easy to do. One of our clients in Dallas is a lab that does this kind of testing, and they got me everything I needed. I took samples from the kids, asking them not to say anything to their mother. Took my own sample and waited for the next Sunday when Steve would come in. As usual, he fell asleep in the chair he always sat in, so swabbing his cheek was fairly easy. Except I didn't get the test results until a week later because the lab mailed them to the store. The test showed that there was a 99.9% probability that Steve was the father of both kids, which meant that he and Jolene had been at it for at least 16 years, if not more. And all this time you never guessed anything? Ashley asked. No, not the slightest clue. I'm sure if I'd sat down and analyzed everything carefully, I could have guessed. But that's the thing. She's never given me any reason to question her fidelity before. Our sex life had always been on the up and up, even after we had children. So I waited for other evidence to come to light. And it didn't take long. A week after I set up all the equipment, I got the first video evidence. I ended up going to Oklahoma City to set up the server, and I knew I'd be there for a couple days. The kids were at my parents' house, so Jolene was on her own. Shortly after I left, she called Steve and arranged for him to come overnight. I called from my hotel in OK City and spoke to her briefly, just to let her know I was there for her. She said she loved me, but by then I didn't care. After that call, I logged into my home server and waited. Sure enough, around 9 o'clock that night, they were in our bed doing the dirty deed. Naturally, he didn't use a condom, which really annoyed me. Worse than watching the two of them growl like animals was what I heard them say. What was that? Ashley asked. Wait a minute, I said. I need to turn onto this road. It's another 30 minutes. I had to focus on this stretch of road. It was getting dark, and there were no streetlights, no guardrails, and no white lines marking the side of the road. Anyone who wasn't looking carefully could have easily ended up in a ditch or worse. Besides, Steve's drug-dealing buddies were operating close to the road. Most of them were arrested or stopped after Steve's death, but I was always on the lookout. A couple times I had to replace the windshield when it got blown out. There was also a lot of wildlife, mostly armadillos and deer. I turned on the high beam and turned on the light bar on the cabin roof. Then I turned on the police scanner and CB radio and pulled a pistol out of the glove compartment. I wasn't going to take any chances. Finally, we pulled up to my house and Ashley spotted a DSS car parked in the driveway. Who's that? She asked. Defense, I replied. They've been watching this place since Steve's arrest. Some of his buddies thought they might burn the place down in retaliation, but we stopped them, cold. I patted the pistol in its holster. She realized what I meant. Are we going to be safe here? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I said. We have round-the-clock security. The security department is also keeping an eye on my family and kids. I think most of Steve's buddies are already locked up, but we're not going to take any chances. Hell, they had to lay off almost the entire sheriff's department. Let's go check it out and I'll introduce you. Pulling into the garage, Ashley and I got out of the car and walked over to the patrol car. A police officer got out of the car and walked over to us. "Bill Jennings?" he asked. "I thought you were all in Dallas for the trial." We shook hands. The trial just went to the jury this afternoon. By the way, this is Ashley Marks, the reporter from the Austin Statesman. She'll be with me this weekend, gathering information on Steve for an article, I said. Nodding to her, he touched the tip of his gray Stetson. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," he said, smiling. He looked at me again. "It's been quiet so far. Ever since the Rangers took the last gang out of here, things have been quiet. But who knows? My replacement will show up soon." "Thanks," I said. We shook hands and parted ways. "Good night, you hear?" he said as we headed for the door. "I will," I said. "Same to you." I set the coffee pot down and gave Ashley a tour of the house as we walked inside. The original house was built in 1866 by William Bryan Jennings after he returned from fighting for the Confederacy in the Civil War. Since then, the house has been expanded, remodeled, and modernized many times, but there are still a few places where you can see the original 150-year-old structure. Today, the house has 5 bedrooms on 2 floors and a 3-car garage with a covered porch. The house had a bedroom for each of the 2 children. A master bedroom, one room turned into a place for Jolene's sewing and needlework, and another room turned into a playroom TV room for the kids. I suggested Ashley sleep in the master bedroom since it was the only one with a bathroom, and I figured she would appreciate the privacy. On the other hand, I could sleep on the futon in my den office downstairs, as I had been doing since I had become convinced of Jolene's infidelity. Ashley, however, wouldn't hear of it. "Nonsense," she said. "This bed is big enough for 4 people. There's plenty of room and we're both adults and can control ourselves." That threw me off balance. "Okay, if you say so," I said. She smiled and led me down the stairs. "You have a story to tell me, so let's get to it," she said. "Let me call the kids first so they know we're coming over tomorrow," I said. I called my parents' house, talked to my dad, then to the kids. They were happy to see Ashley and we agreed that we would be there for lunch. I grabbed my coffee and headed into the living room. As I put the cups down, I found that I had a stack of DVDs and grabbed them from the study where they were kept under lock and key. "This should help a lot," I said. Her eyes widened. "My God, how many videos do you have?" she asked. "Quite a few, actually," I said. "Some of it is from the house, some of it is from the security cameras in my office. I've also scanned all the documents, and I have a whole bunch of photos and audio recordings, so everything I have is here, and I have a few copies just in case." I pulled out the disc, confirmed it was the one, and popped it into the DVD player. "Let me warn you that it's very graphic," I said. "I'm ready," she said. I reminded her that this particular DVD confirmed my suspicions. I also reminded her to listen carefully to what it was about. I pressed play, and the clip began. Jolene walked into the bedroom, followed by Steve. Jolene removed the rings and tossed them into the ashtray on my nightstand. Steve, smiling, put out his cigarette on them. "Screw him and his great-grandmother's ring," Jolene said. Steve laughed. Ashley grimaced, tears coming to her eyes. Eventually, they started to cheer. Ashley covered her eyes. Apparently, it was too much for her. I fast-forwarded through the most graphic parts, and Ashley seemed to appreciate the gesture. "This is going to take about an hour," I said. "It was bad enough as it was, but the pillow talk afterward is a real buzzkill." "Thanks for letting it all sink in," Ashley said. "It's one thing to hear that someone you love and care about is cheating. It's quite another to watch it happen." They lay on their backs and lit a cigarette each. Steve pounced on Jolene's rings again. Jolene turned on her side, facing Steve. "I'm pregnant again, baby. Looks like you're going to be a daddy again," she said. Steve frowned. "Holy shit, didn't you take the pill?" he asked. "Yeah, maybe I missed a day or two, but that was pretty much it. Why can't you use a condom?" "I hate that kind of thing," he said. "You know the rules, no rubbers. I guess you'll have to get another abortion. Either that or convince him it's his baby." "I can't have another abortion, Steve," she said. "I've already had 3, and the last one almost killed me. I was so sick I ended up in the emergency room. Besides, you know deep shit had a vasectomy after Jessica was born." It was your idea to make sure he didn't get me pregnant. So what do you want to do? Steve asked. I want to leave and marry you, she replied. That's all I ever wanted to do. And I think Bill is going to figure us out anyway. I told you I'm not the marrying kind. Besides, family can complicate things, and I like what I have now. Bill works and pays, and I get a paycheck, he said. And don't worry about him knowing anything. Hell, he's so damn stupid we could have fun right in front of him, and he wouldn't realize a thing. Why don't you just do to him what you do to other guys? She said. Well, those guys were illegals anyway. No one would have missed them. Besides, who's going to cry over some scumbag drug dealers being in the country illegally? Heck, by getting rid of those guys, I probably secured half the voters. It's one thing to put a bullet in the head of an unknown illegal alien. It's another to do it to a respected member of society. You might have an accident, Jolene said. It wouldn't be the first time. And you know people die driving on Indian Trail all the time. People who do that are usually commuters looking for scenery, and they don't know the road like he does. We might be able to do something about it, but we're not going to get away from him just yet. Maybe we can find something that will gradually incapacitate him. Poison, for instance. Let's think a little before we come up with a plan. We'll have to get rid of him eventually, but let's do it right and at the right time, maybe after the kids are out of the house. That way you get his insurance and a piece of his business. In the meantime, go to the new clinic in Abilene. They'll take better care of you there than those quacks you went to last time. I'll keep an eye on Billy Boy. If it looks like he's going to do something stupid like go to a lawyer, I'll have a little talk with him and bring him up to speed, okay? Jolene nodded. Okay, baby, I'll do it. You're the man, she said, kissing his face. Now let's get to it, she said. And the coupling started again. I stopped the video. Ashley shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I hate that bitch, she said. And you lived with her for 17 years? Please tell me you went to a lawyer after that. I did go to a lawyer. It was a very eventful day. Let me tell you about it, I said, beginning my narrative. I did go to see a lawyer. As I had told Ashley, I had made an appointment with Alan Jackson, the attorney who had handled all of our family's business and personal legal matters over the years. What I learned at that appointment pierced me to the core. I recalled my visit to Alan's office. After the initial greetings, I got right down to business, showing him some of the evidence I had, including the DNA report and the videotape of Jolene's affair with Steve. Alan explained what I could expect. Even though Texas is a community property state, a divorce can be granted on the grounds of adultery or cruelty. Although adultery is not a crime in Texas, it can affect a judge's decision in the distribution of property and alimony. It can also be used in civil litigation. But as Alan told me, the biggest problem I encountered was not with the law. Legally, he said, I had a win-win case. The problem, he added, was Steve. Look, Bill, he told me, Steve runs this county with an iron fist. He owns the sheriff's department, not to mention every judge in the county. And in Texas, you have to file a lawsuit in the county where you've lived for the last 90 days. Frankly, I don't think there's a judge in this county who would even consider your case. Besides, Jolene's pregnancy could delay the process. Texas courts won't finalize a divorce until the baby is born. It does not matter who the father of the child is. This is so that any final child support orders can be taken into consideration. One last thing, Bill. Steve has informed me that you may want to divorce Jolene. He made it clear that we are to inform him of any attempts to start divorce proceedings. Wait a minute, I said. Are you saying that Steve ordered you to violate attorney-client privilege and maybe even break the law by refusing to report a crime? Alan nodded his head. I'm afraid so, Bill. I don't like it one bit, but I have no desire to end up in a shallow grave on Indian Trail, if you know what I mean. You have no idea what you're up against, he said. I'm sorry, Bill. I really don't have a choice. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm sorry too, Alan. Looks like I don't have a choice either. You're fired. Right now. I need all the family and business files and any backups you might have, and I want them now, I said. I guessed you'd answer that way, so I took the liberty of putting them all together, he said, pointing to 2 boxes of papers on the floor by the door. He pulled out a piece of paper, wrote some notes on it, and held it out to me. Thank you, he said, realizing that I had given him a way out. Again, he said. I'm really sorry about that. I thought you and him were friends. Is there no way you can get over that Jolene thing? For the sake of the kids? Could you stand not being known as a cuckold for 17 years? I asked him. I don't think so, he answered. Let me help you get those files out. It's the least I can do. He picked up the boxes of documents while I closed my briefcase and walked with me to the truck. Once there, he looked around before he spoke again. Now, call those people I listed in the paper I gave you, Bill. I didn't want to say anything in the office just in case, but the authorities are very interested in some of Steve's activities. No time to waste, please, he said. As far as I know, Steve is keeping tabs on you. Again, I apologize for that. Maybe after this is over, we can get together and work things out. I shook his hand. Thank you, Alan. I understand. We'll be in touch. I walked back to the office, mulling over everything Alan had said. I wasn't too worried about Alan's dismissal, as I knew my father would support my decision. I was more concerned about Steve and what he or his cronies might do to the family. I called the numbers Alan had given me and arranged to meet each of the three men mentioned. One was an expensive, high-ranking family law attorney with a well-deserved reputation as a blood-sucking shark. Another was a state's attorney, and the third was a senior officer in the Texas Rangers. All of them were located in Dallas. I talked to my father and told him I had fired Alan as our attorney. He was fine with that. Why the hell did you do that? He asked. I explained what Alan had told me, and then showed him the DNA and video evidence I had presented to Alan. His tone changed significantly. Holy shit, he said. I suspected Steve was a snake, but I didn't think that much. You've got to get the kids out of the house. There's no telling what they'll do. I agreed, but wondered what excuse I could use. Dad already had a plan. When do you have appointments in Dallas? He asked. I told him I had an appointment for tomorrow. Okay. Tell Jolene that I'm sending you to Phoenix to survey the area, and you may be gone for a few days. I'll go home with you just in case. Have the kids pack up and stay with us. Hopefully it will help take their minds off the road for a while, he said. Are you going to tell the kids about this? I have to, Dad. They deserve to know the truth, I said. I won't scold their mom, but they're old enough to make their own decisions. Okay, son. Do what you think is right and Mom and I will support you, he said. I called Brian's cell phone and explained that he and Jessica would be staying with his grandparents starting today. What's going on, Dad? He asked. I'll tell you later. Just make sure both you and your sister are home right after school, I said. Grandpa will pick you up from there. Okay, Dad, we'll be there, he said. Love you guys, I said. I could almost hear his face turn red with embarrassment. I love you too, Daddy, he whispered. A few minutes later, I got a text message from my secretary. Bill, Steve Jenkins is here to see you, she said. I pulled my gun out of its holster and placed it on the desk for easy retrieval, turned on the VCR to film the meeting, and told the secretary to send the tape and let my father know he was here. Steve walked into the office like he owned the place and immediately saw the 9mm pistol on my desk. Nice equipment you got, he said. I didn't know computer guys used guns. What do you need, Steve? I asked. Straight to the point. Okay, look, I know you went to see Alan Jackson today, he said. So, what's in it for you, I asked. If you're thinking about divorcing Jolene, forget it. He said. I don't care if you know about her and me, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let you drag me through the mud in court. Tell me, Steve, why? I thought we were friends. Why did you and Jolene do that, and how long did it go on? How long? He asked. That's a good thing. You're going to like this. We actually started back during prom. You remember, don't you? Ashley was my date, but Jolene and I got away for a while and got carried away. You were dancing with Ashley when we got back, remember? Hell, we were all 18 at the time, so we weren't doing anything illegal. Then we got back together when you were at Quantico. Remember when I hurt my knee at Pendleton? We did that quite a bit until you came back. Jolene was on birth control, but apparently forgot to take it the day you got married, he said. You were my best man, asshole, I said. I was her best man, too. I have to admit, I really enjoyed watching her walk down the aisle. She was so beautiful. And guess what? 9 months later, Brian was born, he said. Well, isn't that a kick in the ass? Of course, we weren't together until you brought her home for the vacations. That was just before you went to Okinawa. Yeah, Jolene and I had a good time. Spent almost every night together while you were there. She got pregnant about 6 months later and had an abortion. Didn't want you coming home with a pregnant wife. Hell, I even slept with her the day your plane landed. And guess what? 9 months later, Jessica showed up, he said. By the way, it was my idea to have Jolene make you get a vasectomy. We didn't want her to have your children. Thought it would be too hard to keep track of who was born to whom. Jolene screwed up a couple times over the years and she had to get an abortion. Good thing insurance covers abortions. We were doing just fine all these years until you decided to wise up. You couldn't just leave things the way they were. No, you had to become outraged and righteous. That's the way it's going to be. Now that you know about us, there's no need to divorce and hide it. From now on, I will come to you at all hours of the day and night. And when I'm there, I'll play with Jolene wherever I want. And when I'm around, you'll remember that I'm the master of the house. You'll do what I say, when I say, and how I say. And if you get thoughts in your head about stopping me, think of the children. I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to them. You bastard, I said. You touch one hair on those kids and I'll put you down like a rabid dog. And I don't care if it's the last thing I do in my life. Talk all you want, asshole, Steve said. Just remember who's in charge around here. Hell, I own this county. I own the sheriff's department. I own every goddamn judge in the courthouse. And now I own you. You play ball, you'll be all right. You step out of line, everything's going to be all right. For you and the kids. Would you hurt your own children? I asked. What happened to you? I've grown up, Steve said. And you better grow up too, Cookie. I'll see you around. Steve walked out of the office and I stopped the tape. I burned it to DVD, sent a copy of the video to my dad and my contacts in Dallas, and called my dad. Dad, check the mail. We better move, right now, I said. He just threatened me and the kids. Okay, Dad said. Let me make the call. Call Brian and have him pick up Jess and come to my house. Let the school know and I'll meet you at the house. I think it's time to evict your wife. I agreed and called the school, informing them that under no circumstances should my wife or Steve Jenkins take the children or even be in the building, explaining that it could be a matter of life and death. I also informed them that the children must leave immediately. I called Brian and told him to pick up Jess immediately and go straight to his grandfather's house. No questions asked. I'll talk about you kids later today, I promise, I told him. And under no circumstances should you have any contact with your mother or Steve. This is very important. Do you understand? Yes, Dad, I understand. What's going on? He asked. There's no time to explain now, son. Just do as I say, okay? Okay, Dad, he said. I grabbed my gun, the DVD I had just burned, walked out of the office and jumped in my truck. I knew my dad would be on his way soon, so I didn't wait. If he said he would be somewhere, then he would be. I got out of the truck and headed home. About 15 minutes later, I pulled up in front of my house. I didn't see Steve's truck, but Jolene's car was there. Oh, good. I knew my dad would be here soon. I walked into the house, looking around for Steve or anyone else who might be waiting to hurt me. I kept my right hand on my holstered pistol. I didn't see or hear anyone at first. I took an uncertain step into the house. Jolene was coming down the stairs. Bill, you're home early, she said. Did something happen? I looked at her, at first saying nothing. Is Steve or someone else here? I asked. Why would Steve be here? She replied. I think you know why Steve is here. Maybe to pick up someone after lunch or to set up my murder, I said. Jolene's eyes widened and she brought her hand up to her mouth. Yes, Jolene, I know. Oh my God, she said. I'm so sorry. Nonsense. Let me show you what your lover just told me, and then I'll give you 30 seconds to get your shit together and get out of my house, I said. I put the DVD in the player, turned on the TV, and pressed play on the remote. I watched Jolene's reaction to Steve's confession and his threat. Bill, it's not what you think, she said. Please let me explain. Steve just said some nasty things. We can work things out. Are you kidding me? You conspired with Steve to cuckold me from the beginning. Then you conspired with him to deny me children, and then you conspired with Steve to kill me. What the hell kind of people are you? Now get your shit and get out of here. Now, goddammit. I didn't raise my voice at her, but she was clearly scared. I reached out and took her left hand and took the rings off of it. I put my grandmother's ring in my pocket, took off mine, and slipped it into her hand. Eat it, bitch, I growled. Bill, please don't do this to me. I'm so sorry. she wheezed through her tears. Yeah, you're sorry, all right. You're a pathetic excuse for a wife. Now get out of here. I grabbed her purse and threw it at her. It hit her in the chest. She rushed for the door. I rushed after her. Move, damn it, I said. I was tempted to kick her ass, but I'd been taught never to hit a woman. We walked outside and went to her car. She turned to me as she opened the door. Where am I going to go? She asked, crying. First of all, I said, stop your damn crying. You got what you wanted. Second of all, I don't care. Go to Steve, go to your mother's apartment, or better yet, go to hell. Having said that, I noticed 2 cars pull into the driveway. Dad's truck pulled up first, followed by Steve's. Jolene instantly stopped crying and looked at me with a smirk. Now we'll see who has to go, baby, she said wryly. It would be so much easier if you would just cooperate with us. Are you really going to do that? I asked. In a heartbeat, she replied. Dad turned his truck around to block Steve's access to the house and stopped. Steve hit the brakes, missing his father's truck by only a couple of feet. Steve jumped out of the truck. My dad did too. He pulled out his 12-gauge shotgun, loaded a round, and pointed it at Steve. What the hell are you doing, Jennings? Shouted Steve. I'm following a restraining order, said my father. What kind of restraining order? Steve asked. The one against you and your lover. The one that says you two must stay 500 feet away from my family and our property, said my father. And believe me, asshole, I'd like nothing more than to hurt you. So get in your truck and get out of here. Steve wasn't used to being talked to like that, so he stopped moving forward. 2 cars with flashing beacons pulled into the driveway and stopped behind Steve's truck. 4 state highway patrol officers got out of them with their pistols at the ready. We'll take it from here, Mr. Jennings, one of the officers said as he approached Steve. His father lowered his gun as the officer held out a restraining order to Steve. Is this her? He asked, nodding his head toward Jolene. The father shook his head. The officer walked over to Jolene and me and handed her the paper. Mrs. Jennings, you have been served with an order requiring you to keep 500 feet away from any member of the Jennings family and any property under the control of the Jennings Historic Family Foundation, which includes this house, he said. If you refuse to obey this order, you will be taken into custody. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, Jolene said quietly. Excuse me, officer, I said as he started to turn away. He stopped and looked at me. Yes, Mr. Jennings? He asked. I pulled a digital audio recorder out of my shirt pocket. I'd appreciate it if you'd take Jolene and Mr. Jenkins into custody, I said. And why would I do that? He asked. I hit the play button so they could hear the threats Jolene had just made to me and the kids. Jolene looked like she was about to cry. The officer gave her a hard look and then pulled out the handcuffs. Mrs. Jennings, you are under arrest. Please turn around and put your hands behind your back, he said. After handcuffing Jolene and reading her Miranda rights, he radioed for another officer and ordered him to arrest Steve. You're going to pay for this, asshole, Jolene said as she was led away in handcuffs. You're all going to pay. By this time, another car had pulled up to the driveway. A van from a local TV station stopped, and a reporter and a camera crew pulled up in the driveway while Steve was being arrested. They managed to get a report on his arrest that made the evening news. Steve was displeased, to say the least. Damn it, do you know who I am? He asked the officer, handcuffing him. Yeah, I know, the officer replied, and frankly, I don't care. You're under arrest anyway. I'll take your badge away for that, shouted a blushing Steve. And I realized I should have mentioned their plot to kill me, but I didn't have the evidence with me. Some of it was still in the DVD player in the house. And events were moving pretty fast. Still, I knew that my contacts in Dallas had evidence and were working on the charges. The news van backed up and shifted so the patrol cars could pull out of the driveway. The reporter and her cameraman headed toward me, followed by my father. Mr. Jennings, can you explain why Commissioner Jenkins was just arrested? She asked. Yes, I can, I replied. As far as I know, threatening to kill is still a felony, and even popular politicians like Steve and his married girlfriend are covered by the law. Now, if you don't mind, I have children to take care of. I stepped back and my father joined me, leaving the reporter and her cameraman in shock. The voters in our district had treated Steve well, and I knew that his reputation for standing up for family values had just taken a major hit. Unfortunately, the voters didn't know Steve the way I knew him, but I'll make sure they find out. My next stop was my parents' house, where I explained everything to those left of my family. I hated telling my children that the man they knew as Uncle Steve was actually their biological father. But I felt I had to tell them the truth. They didn't want to believe it at first, but I had the DNA test results to prove it. "I don't care what that piece of paper says," Jessica said. "You're my father, and you always will be." "I agree," Brian said. I loved these kids and was proud of them, even if the donor was Steve. We hugged and shed a few tears. After saying a tearful bye to my kids and family, I went back to my house, packed enough stuff to last me a couple days, and headed to Dallas. "And that's when you found out how bad it really was?" Ashley asked, interrupting my narrative. "Yes," I replied, resuming my narrative after another sip of coffee. The next day, I met with Dave Brooks, a Dallas attorney known as a bloodthirsty shark who usually gets his way in the courtroom. Little did I realize that he had arranged for me to meet with all three men I had approached. I was quite surprised when I showed up at his office early in the morning, I saw them all in place. "I'm sorry to come at you like this, Mr. Jennings," Dave said, "but after that last video you sent us, we thought it would be best if we all got together." I accepted his apology, and he introduced me to the other two men. John Hancock, a prosecutor from the state's attorney's office, shook my hand and took charge of the meeting. "Mr. Jennings, let me begin by apologizing for what you've been through," he said. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to speak out. We have evidence, lots of evidence, that shows that Steve Jenkins is not only involved in a number of criminal acts, but that he was assisted by your wife. Not only was he involved in drugs, but we have evidence that he ran guns, engaged in human trafficking and human slavery, and was involved in organizing prostitution. Worse, forensics directly link him to at least 6 murders. In addition, your wife is involved in much of this activity, especially prostitution. We had hoped to have a little more time to put it all together, but the threats against you and your children have forced us to push the timeline back considerably," he said. A third man, Don Jacobs, a captain with the Texas Rangers, summarized the situation from his perspective. He made it clear to me that the entire sheriff's department had been compromised and could not be trusted to do its job. As a result, he said, an attempt has been made to temporarily replace the department with Rangers and DSS officers until a replacement can be trained and hired. Unfortunately, that includes the correctional facilities where Jenkins and your wife are being held, he said, so we need to act quickly before the situation worsens. As for your divorce, Dave said, I will be pushing for an annulment, given your wife's criminal activities and the deception she and Jenkins have used against you. If that doesn't work, we'll file on the grounds of adultery and mental cruelty. From what you have provided, I believe you will get all of your assets as well as custody of your children if that is what you want. We talked for another hour or so, discussing strategy and possible scenarios. Dave handed me a DVD that he said contained videotapes of my wife's actions by private and government investigators. Some of them, he said, were quite graphic in nature and involved several people, including sheriff's deputies. Finally, John told me what he was going to do with Steve and Jolene. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, Mr. Jennings, he said. I'm going to impose the death penalty, at least as far as Jenkins is concerned. Your wife may be lucky enough to get a life sentence without parole. However, I must warn you, he added, your life and the lives of your family members are in danger. Be very careful. From what I've seen, you and your children are damn lucky to be alive right now. People who cross paths with those two usually die. You have our direct numbers. So if you see anything or suspect anything, call us immediately. Do you hear me? I hear you, I said. We shook hands and parted ways. My thoughts were in a daze. The man I once thought was my best friend had turned out to be not only a murderer, but also drugs, guns, prostitution, and little else. And my so-called loving wife was a part of it all. And then the ride home was spent thinking about everything that had happened in the last 17 years. How could I have missed it all? Had I been so blinded by love and friendship? Finally, I got back to town and received a frantic call from my son. Dad, you have to come home right now, Brian said. What's going on? I asked. Just come home now, he said, and hung up. I hit the gas and made it home in about 20 minutes. When I saw the ambulance and highway police patrol cars in front of the house, I immediately remembered what I had been told. I rushed to the door just as the paramedics were wheeling the gurney out into the street. I stopped them to see what was wrong. The paramedic pulled back the corner of the sheet, revealing Jolene's face. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jennings," the paramedic said. "She's dead." Oddly enough, I wasn't all that upset. Stepping inside, I found Steve being wheeled in on another gurney. His left shoulder had been shattered by a shotgun blast, but judging by his moans, he was still alive. I saw the kids and the father standing off to the side. Thank God they seemed to be okay, I thought. Avoiding the blood on the carpet, I walked over to them and hugged them to make sure they were okay. "What happened?" I asked. Dad answered. "I brought my kids here to get a few things," he said. "We had been here for a few minutes when these two came inside. I guess they managed to bail them out. Jessica and Jolene got into a fight and Steve pulled out a gun. I heard the commotion and came in the back door. Brian and I were in the backyard packing up. I grabbed my shotgun and walked in just as Steve pulled out the gun. Jolene tried to get him to put the gun down, but it went off. He shot her, seemingly by accident, right in the belly. I pulled Steve's shoulder out and called 911. That's when Brian called you." Jolene didn't last long. She was gone by the time the ambulance arrived. "I'm sorry, son," he said. I shook my head. "It's okay, Dad," I said. "You did the right thing." And then I remembered that the security system on the home server was still working. I checked and made sure the entire incident was captured on video. I showed the video to one of the officers while the other took statements from my father and children. He asked me to make a copy, which I did. I interrupted my narration to take another sip of coffee. "Do you have that video?" Ashley asked. "I do, actually," I replied, pulling the disc out of the stack. I inserted it into the DVD player and pressed a button on the remote. The video started with Jolene and Steve entering the house through the front door. Shortly after, Jessica walked into the room. "What are you two doing here?" She asked. "You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in jail." "We bailed you out," Jolene said, "and we took you children. You're coming with us." "I'm not going anywhere with any of you," Jessica said. "You have to leave, now." Jolene grabbed Jessica's wrist. "Oh yes, that's right, young lady. You and your brother come with us now," Jolene said. Jessica grimaced and recoiled from her mother. "No way, bitch," Jessica yelled. "I hate you and I'm not going anywhere with you." Jolene slapped her hard across the face. "Oh yes you are," she replied. "I've got a lovely room ready for you in Abilene. You will go and do whatever I say." Jessica slapped her mother across the face in response. "That's not going to happen," she said. Jessica, stunned by the blow, grabbed Jessica's hands in her own. "Oh yes you are," she said. "You're going to be our new star. Right, Steve?" Steve grinned back. "The boys are going to like you, girl," he said. Steve and Jolene laughed as it dawned on Jessica what they were up to. She began to struggle even harder and finally broke free of her mother's grip. "I'm not going, and you can't make me," she said. "Now get the hell away from me." Steve pulled a gun from behind his belt and started waving it around as he spoke. "Well, I guess it's over for you and your brother," he said. Jolene turned to Steve and tried to reason with him, and Jessica started screaming, calling for her grandfather. "Wait, Steve. We agreed we weren't going to finish them off here. Let's take them to a place off the Indian Trail where they won't be found." "You know the place," she said. Steve shook his head angrily. "No," he said. "No, Steve. Put the gun down before disaster strikes. We'll deal with them, but not here. We have to stick to our plan," she said. They started struggling, and then a loud gunshot rang out, followed by an even louder one. At that point, I stopped watching the DVD. "That's when Brian called me," he said. "You already know the rest." Ashley wiped tears from her eyes as I stood up from the couch. "I'm done for the day, if you don't mind," I said. "I think I'll go out in the backyard and have a smoke and then go to the cafeteria." Ashley stood up and followed me out. "I'll join you if that's okay," she said. We each had a cup of fresh coffee and walked out onto the back porch. For a while, neither of us said anything. The silence was broken by Ashley. "I forgot how dark and quiet it is out here," she said. "I guess I'm used to city life." She looked at me for a moment before saying something else. "Bill, you need to get it over with before it tears you apart," she said. "Easier said than done," I answered her. "How do you come to terms with the fact that the woman you've loved all these years has been lying to you all this time, I feel like I've been cheated out of my whole life. My children aren't even mine, for crying out loud. I understand a little of how you feel, she said. Remember, my husband was a serial cheater, but not everyone is like that. Yeah, I know, I said quietly. Ashley put her arms around me, trying to comfort me. For what it's worth, Bill, just know that I'm here for you, okay? I'll always be here for you. I hugged her back and thanked her. It was nice to have her around, and she felt really good around me. I can't tell you how many times I wish I had met you in high school, she said. I thought the same thing. Maybe if my dad hadn't transferred to Austin, we would have met, and none of this would have happened. You know, I was even jealous of Jolene in those days. Really? I asked. But you were with Steve. We only dated because you and Jolene were hot at the time, but I had my doubts even then. I knew Steve wasn't the type to get attached to one girl. He even told me that, she said. Well, there's no point in crying about it now. Or, I said. Besides, if you and I had gotten together, you wouldn't be a reporter in the big city. Puh, she said. Yeah, of course I would. You know there are times when I'm willing to give up everything just to be with a good man, she added, looking at me. I looked at her again. You know, I think you would, I said. After a while, we went back to the house and started getting ready to finish the day. I decided to lie down on the couch, as I had done many times since Jolene had been shot. Even though there was a DSS officer standing outside, I was still concerned that one of Steve's buddies might sneak in. Besides, I still wasn't sure how things would work out with Ashley, and I didn't want to escalate the situation considering I'd only slept with one woman in my entire adult life. Ashley, thankfully, understood. Just don't make it a habit, cowboy, she said, smiling. I lay down and fell soundly asleep, waking up to the smell. Bacon. Rise and shine, Ashley said, standing over me in a long t-shirt. Breakfast is ready, so go get it. I got up off the couch and made my way to the kitchen table to admire the scene before me. Ashley had prepared pancakes, bacon, sausage, grits, toast, eggs, cookies, and gravy. My kind of breakfast. She even remembered to put peanut butter on the table. I was one of those guys who liked peanut butter on his pancakes. A guy could get used to that, I said. Ashley walked over to the table with fresh coffee. How long have you been up? Not long. I hope you like it, she said. It's been a long time since I've made breakfast for a man. It certainly smells good. You'll definitely get my mom's approval for that, I said. I'm impressed. Didn't you cook like this for your husband? I said for a man. My ex-husband thought fast food egg biscuits were breakfast. Blee, she said. Dig in, cowboy. We've got a lot to do today, she added, smiling. So what's on the agenda? I asked, savoring the feast on my plate. Well, she said, tonight I want to see your family, and then I thought we could visit Jolene's mom. I thought she might be able to give some insight into Jolene's thought processes. Then, if there's time left, I'd like to stop by the cemetery and take pictures of Jolene's final resting place. And by the way, if you're counting on the same breakfast tomorrow morning, we'll have to stop at the store. You're almost out of everything, she said. I devoured the food like I hadn't eaten in a week, sipping my coffee and expressing verbal gratitude for Ashley's cooking. Jolene hadn't made breakfast like this in years, and I felt like I'd died and gone to heaven. I finished my meal feeling more satisfied than I had ever felt in a long time. I stood up and hugged and kissed Ashley, thanking her for the wonderful breakfast. It was amazing, I told her. I think I better go and get ready. Please do, she said. You're beautiful, but you need to shave. I went upstairs and thought about Ashley while I showered and shaved. In less than 24 hours, I found myself falling in love with her, just like I had when I was in high school. Could it be, I thought, that Ashley and I are destined to be together? For the first time in months, I felt content. Ashley had used the shower on the second floor and was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. She looked the same as she had once looked a long time ago. Grabbing her laptop bag and purse, she beckoned me to follow her. We pulled up to my parents' house and were greeted by two kids who ran out of the house as soon as I pulled up. I introduced everyone to Ashley and we walked into the living room. Ashley explained what she wanted to do and asked if she could talk to everyone alone. We all agreed, so Mom excused herself and went into the kitchen to make dinner, and Dad took me into the living room. Ashley started with Jessica, and after spending an hour with her, she talked to Brian at length. Dad and I waited and spent most of the time talking about guy stuff. Hunting, fishing, soccer, Not much else. We both avoided anything to do with Jolene and/or Steve. A couple hours later, Ashley came into the room and asked to speak to my dad. I took the hint, grabbed the kids, and went outside to toss a soccer ball around. It took a little over an hour, but she finished talking to both of my parents and went outside to join us until lunch was ready. The kids seemed to really bond with Ashley, and she seemed to enjoy spending time with us. We split into teams of 2 and played soccer. Jessica and I teamed up against Ashley and Brian and had a great time until Mom said lunch was ready. I enjoyed vacationing with Ashley and the kids, and for a while, I felt like I had a happy family again. After lunch, we said our goodbyes and got ready to leave. Jessica caught up with me before I was out the door. "Daddy," she whispered as she hugged me, "if you don't ask her to marry you, I swear I'll kick your ass." What could I say? I promised her I'd think hard about it. "So, how did your interviews go?" I asked Ashley as we left. "It went really well, thank you," she replied. "Bill, I know you're having trust issues right now, so I wanted to explain why I interviewed everyone privately." She was quite perceptive, perhaps the result of reporter's flair. "It's good journalistic practice to get independent confirmation, you know. It's not that I don't believe you, I do. And I do believe you. I watched those videos with you, remember? But I wanted them all to feel free to speak out without outside influence. I hope you understand," she said. I did understand, and the fact that she explained everything without me saying anything meant a lot. "I understand, Ashley. You're doing your job and acting like a professional. So, did you learn anything new?" "Actually, yes," she said. "Jessica told me that Steve has been giving her attention signs and has been for quite some time." "That son of a bitch," I said. "I also learned that your family loved you very much and thought everything they wanted about you," she added. "They also loved Jolene, but they had problems with her and thought something was going on with her. They didn't say anything because they didn't want to interfere with your marriage. I think if they knew something specific, they would have definitely said something." "What else did you find out?" I asked. "I learned what it was like to be part of a close-knit family, and I loved it," she said. "I really enjoyed spending that time with you and the kids. Thank you for including me." "My pleasure," I said. "The kids and I had a great time too. I think you made quite an impression on them." We pulled up to the apartment complex where Jolene's mother, Myrna, lived, parked, and headed for the door. "Do you want to interview her privately?" I asked. "I don't think that would be necessary," she replied. "Besides, something tells me that you and she need to clear this whole thing up." Myrna Carter opened the door at the first knock and invited us in. She moved slowly, partly for health reasons and partly because of depression. Her husband, Jolene's father, had died several years ago in a mysterious accident, and since Jolene's death she had been left alone, with no direct relatives. "How are you feeling?" I asked, hugging her. "I'm fine, Bill, thanks for asking," she replied. She put her arms around Ashley and looked her over from head to toe. "Ashley Marks, you are just as beautiful now as you were in high school. Thank you for coming to see an older woman." Ashley smiled as Myrna invited us to sit down. "What brings you here?" she asked. I explained what Ashley was doing, and Myrna nodded her head approvingly. "So what can I tell you?" she asked. "Well, Mrs. Carter, I'm curious about something. This affair between Jolene and Steve continued throughout her marriage. You must have known about it. I'm curious to know why you didn't say anything to Bill." Myrna lowered her eyes before answering. She looked embarrassed. "Yes, I knew," she said. "I'm sorry, Bill. I should have said something to you. You didn't deserve what they did to you." "How long have you known?" I asked. "Almost since the beginning," she replied. "Remember that year you spent in Okinawa? Steve practically lived with Jolene all that year. They were careful to make sure he wasn't in the house when your family was around. I told her she was making a huge mistake, but she refused to listen to me." "So," I began, "if Jolene wanted to be with Steve so badly, why did she marry me? I would have let her go if she had just said she wanted to be with him." "She was a confused girl, Bill. She actually loved you both, but in different ways. You see, to her, you were stable, dependable, a good husband and father. Steve, on the other hand, wanted nothing to do with raising children. He had always been a wild child and didn't want to commit to the bonds of marriage. You were a support for her, and he was a source of adventure." "I'm sorry, Myrna," I said. "Jolene had sex with Steve the day we got married. She had 2 children with him and passed them off as mine. Eventually, She plotted to kill us all. Those are not the actions of a loving wife. I know it's hard to believe, Bill, Myrna said, but she really did love you, at least at first. At least that's what she told me. So what happened? Ashley asked. What changed Jolene so much? Well, Ashley, people change over time, I guess, said Myrna. Steve latched onto Jolene and soon began to control her. I told her about it once, but she warned me that if I said anything to Bill, I'd regret it later. Myrna looked at me. That's why I stopped coming to the kids, Bill. I'm sorry, but I just couldn't go there and look you in the eye knowing what Jolene was doing. I knew I'd probably say something that would hurt them. Sometimes they scare the hell out of me. Did you know about her abortions? Ashley asked. Myrna nodded. Yes, I did. Jolene admitted it to me. I told her she was being stupid and would get caught sooner or later, but she just shrugged it off. Said it was her choice and Bill had no right to do it. I suggested she do the right thing and divorce Bill. She laughed and said she would never divorce. Said a little time would pass and she would still inherit everything Bill has. How long ago was that? Ashley asked. I don't know. Probably a year and a half or so, replied Myrna. We left that question for a few seconds. So Jolene and Steve had been meaning to do this to me for a long time. I wanted to say something, Bill, but I was so scared. You know how scary Steve can be? I knew. Something was bothering me about all of this, so I spoke up. Myrna, did your husband know about all this? I asked. I think so, she replied. I know he and Steve had a conversation just before the accident. Myrna's husband was known as one of the best mechanics around, if not the best, and took very good care of all his cars. Investigators called the crash an accident, but were never able to explain how one brake line mysteriously failed and how the traction mysteriously weakened. I guess that's all in the past now, isn't it? Myrna asked. By the way, I don't blame you and the kids for not attending the memorial service, especially after what she did to you. I was hoping a few of her old friends would come, but it was just me and the priest, she added, wiping a tear from her eye. I want to thank you, Bill, for paying for the cremation. I thought it was interesting that you had them put her in a wedding dress. I was hoping that maybe Jessica would want to do that. Ashley looked at me. You cremated her in a wedding dress, did you? Why? I told you I burned her wedding dress. I just didn't tell you she was wearing it at the time. I also made sure she wore the engagement ring I gave her. To tell you the truth, I thought it was appropriate. I figured she didn't need our marriage, so... The last straw of revenge, I get it. Did you cremate her wedding ring too? Ashley asked. But not the engagement ring. I nodded. She seemed half amused, taking notes. Anyway, said Myrna, I want to thank you for making sure I got a Jolene IRA. It helped a lot since I have a steady income and all. Jolene had an IRA? Ashley asked. Yeah, I said. When she was shot, she had about $350,000 in it. I didn't even know she had one at the time. She also had another $200,000 in a savings account that I didn't know anything about. I put it in a trust fund for the kids' college education. Don't ask me how she did it, because I don't think I want to know. Interesting, she said, returning to her notebook. She turned to Myrna. Mrs. Carter, is there anything else you can add? Myrna shook her head. Nothing that would get my attention. I think you all know almost everything else. Myrna looked at me. I'm so sorry about the way things turned out, Bill. I hugged her. It's all right, Myrna. Listen, feel free to drop by the kids anytime you want, okay? I'm sure they'll be happy to see you. She nodded and thanked me, then hugged Ashley. Thanks for stopping by, she said as we got ready to leave. And please don't be strangers, okay? We promised to keep in touch and left. Did you cremate her in her wedding dress and wedding ring? Ashley asked as we got into the pickup truck. It seemed that way to me at the time, I replied. Ashley went back to her notes and I headed to the cemetery. We walked through the manicured grounds until we reached the columbarium where her ashes were kept. A short granite plaque read Jolene Carter and listed the year of her birth and the year of her death. There was no further indication on the plaque of who or what she had been. At least you treated her remains with some dignity, Ashley said. Well, I said, it was done mostly for Myrna's sake. If it had been up to me, I would have just flushed her ashes down the toilet. Interesting that you made them use her maiden name, she added. Yeah, I figured since she didn't have any use for our family in her life, it wasn't worth burdening her with her last name for eternity, I said. They tried to get me to write something like loving wife and mother on the monument. I figured they wouldn't write cheating whore or lying conniving bitch. So I kept it simple. Ashley picked up her pictures, turned to me and put her hand on my chest. There's still a lot of anger in him, isn't there? Tell me, Bill, did you ever mourn her? At all? She asked. To tell you the truth, no. In fact, I haven't shed a single tear since she was shot. All my love for her had been burned out by her lies and cheating. Her threats against the children and myself had all but destroyed all my feelings for her. I was ashamed, and it brought tears to my eyes. Damn it, I didn't want to do this in front of Ashley. I shook my head and started to turn away so Ashley wouldn't see my tears. She stopped me and made me turn to face her. You need to get it out of your head, Bill, before it eats you up, she said. Let it go and you can move on with your life. What kind of life is that, Ashley? I asked. Everything I thought I had all these years turned out to be a lie. Everything. I shook my head, and tears began to roll down my cheeks. Ashley wrapped her arms around me and pulled me tight against her. This is what happened. I sobbed uncontrollably for quite some time. Ashley didn't say anything but continued to hold me tightly, kissing my face from time to time. I finally calmed down and looked at Ashley. I wiped a tear rolling down her cheek from her face. What's that? I asked. She was my friend too, remember? The four of us, you, me, Steve, Jolene, the four musketeers. I loved her like a sister back then, she said. I hate what she's become, but I loved her anyway. You loved her too, and for a long time. You married her, raised 2 children with her. That must mean something. You're probably right, I said. Damn right, cowboy. I'm here and now, Bill, she added. And I'll be here as long as you need me or want me, got it? I smiled. I understand, I told her. She smiled and patted my chest. We need to get to the store before it's too late, she said. What do you want to do about dinner? I thought for a moment before answering. How about going to Charlie's? I asked. They're cooking a killer steak, and there's a band playing there tonight. You're asking me out on a date? In front of your wife's ashes? Why not? I asked. She smiled, kissed me on the lips, and looked at Jolene's marker. Bye, Jolene, she said. Your husband is asking me out. I stared at the marker for a while before turning back to the truck. Bye, honey, I whispered. I thought I heard a soft sob next to me, but there was no one there. I figured it was the wind playing tricks on me, but without wasting any time, I walked back to the truck where Ashley was waiting for me. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, I replied, starting the pickup. Let's go get some breakfast and get ready for tonight. We stopped by the farmer's market where we bought eggs, bread, milk, bacon, and anything else Ashley thought we might need and then headed home. Home. What a concept. For a while I had considered this place just a house, a place where I slept. But now, being here with Ashley, it felt natural. I showered, shaved, and dressed, then waited for Ashley to finish doing what women do when they're getting ready for a date. She finally came down the stairs wearing a denim skirt that came down a couple of inches above her knees and a white blouse. She completed the ensemble with a pair of rather expensive cowboy boots, a woman to my taste. She was beautiful, and today she was my date. I offered her my arm and we walked together to our chariot. Charlie's restaurant was well known in our neighborhood for serving the best steaks with all the condiments. Potatoes and string beans with soft cookies rounded out the meal. Afterward, we had a beer and looked over to the dance floor where several other couples had already started dancing. Do you guys want to dance? I asked. Sure, Ashley replied. We danced and danced and danced some more. We did 2 step dances, a few quick waltzes, a few slow dances, and even participated in a line dance, something I hadn't done in a very long time. Ashley was with me the whole time, but excused herself to the ladies' room a couple times. We were dancing to a slow tune with our arms around each other when Ashley stopped and nestled into me in a soft, sensual kiss. Our tongues lingered briefly, making me very excited down below. She leaned down to my ear. I love you, Bill Jennings, she whispered. Always have and always will. That was it. And truth be told, I fell in love with her too. I love you too, Ashley Marks, I said. She licked her lips nervously for a moment. Take me home. And make madly passionate love to me, cowboy, she said. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to pounce on you right here. Who could refuse such an offer? Then we'd better get this situation under control, little lady, I said in my best horrible John Wayne impersonation. She smiled, took my hand, and led me into the parking lot. Take me home, she purred. And yes, she started entertaining me in the car. No, thank God it was dark and the windows were tinted as much as the law allowed, I thought. Otherwise, we might have gotten pulled over. Still, I was enjoying the show Ashley had put on for me. We're almost home, I told her. Good, she whispered. Finally, we made it home. I parked in the garage and pushed the button closing the big door. I couldn't wait to get out of the car. Eventually, we calmed down and laid on the bed, her arms around me. I thought about the events of the past 2 days. Just 36 hours ago, I was a depressed, despondent man overcoming the pain of cheating on a lying spouse who had repeatedly neglected me, with a man I once considered my best friend. Yeah, now I had Ashley to show me what it meant to love again. I knew what I wanted to do, but I was afraid she'd think I was in too much of a hurry. Screw it, I thought. Full speed ahead. I raised my eyes to her face, framed by long, dark hair. She was glaring at me. A penny for your thoughts, she said. I don't want it to ever end, I told her. Neither do I, she said. And what do you propose to do about it? Interesting choice of words, I thought. Probably those damn reporter instincts again. I opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out a small box, the same box that held my great-grandmother's engagement ring. I took it to the jeweler to have it thoroughly cleaned after I took it from Jolene. Ashley was already sitting on the bed, her attention focused on the jewelry box. I told her about the ring and what it meant to me. The ring was originally given to my great-grandmother a couple years before my great-grandfather went off to fight with the Germans in World War I. He fought in the Battle of Belleau Wood, a 1917 battle where the Marines earned the nickname Devil Dogs. He survived the war, but exposure to German gas shortened his life considerably. My great-grandmother passed the ring on to her oldest son, who gave it to his future bride. After Pearl Harbor, he fought the Japanese in the Pacific and was wounded at Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima. My grandfather came home, and they had 2 boys, one of whom was my father. By the time my grandmother was to pass away, my parents had been married for a long time, so it was decided that I would get the ring. You see, Ashley, this ring symbolizes not only my love for you, but also over 100 years of Jennings family history. I understand if you would prefer a new ring, but I want you to know what it means to me. It's not just a hand-me-down. Ashley looked at me, a tear in her eye. Yes, she said, both of those things and a third. I will marry you and I promise to make you the happiest man in the world for the rest of your life. And I will wear your great-grandmother's ring with pride. There is only one condition. A condition? I asked. Yes, she said. Promise me you'll cancel your vasectomy. I plan to give you a whole house full of kids. Maybe someday I can pass it on to one of our grandchildren. I smiled, slipped the ring on her finger, and we kissed for a long time before making love again and falling asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, I woke up to the more pleasant than sex smell of bacon. I did my morning chores and went downstairs to see Ashley making another of her killer breakfasts. We ate breakfast and packed up our stuff for our trip to Dallas. We decided to shower together, which naturally led to another hot session of lovemaking. I decided to call the kids and give them the news after we finally got dressed and packed. I dialed the number and put it on the speaker so Ashley and I could hear them answer. Brian yelled, "Woo-hoo!" when I told him we were getting married. Jessica was just as happy. Good for you, Daddy, she said. You have a real winner. Congratulations to you guys, my dad said. And welcome to the family, Ashley. Thank you, Mr. Jennings, she said. Mr. Jennings is my dad, he said, laughing. You can call me Daddy if you want. Okay, Daddy, Ashley said. Thanks again. Ashley, I'm so happy for you two, my mom said. Have you guys made a date yet? Not yet, Ashley said. I have some things to take care of in Austin first, but that will happen as soon as possible. Hey, there was one more thing I needed to discuss with the kids. Brian, I said. You know, I think it would be great if you and Jessica visited your Grandma Carter from time to time. Just stop by to say hi and let her know you're thinking of her. She's still your grandmother and she misses you. What do you say? Good, Dad, he said. Good for you, I told him. Brian and Jessica were great guys, and I knew they'd do the right thing. We said our goodbyes and loaded into the pickup truck for the return trip. Ashley's words to my mom came to mind. I almost forgot you were working in Austin. What are your plans? I mean, long-distance relationships don't always work out, I said. Did you know that Jake Carson is stepping down as editor-in-chief of the Daily Record? She asked, referring to the local paper. I didn't know that, but I asked her to continue. I sent my resume last week before our meeting, and they want to talk to me about the job. He won't retire until 3 months from now, and it will take me 2 months to finalize things at Statesman. What if you don't get the job? I asked. That's okay, she replied. I'll quit my job and live with someone I know in the neighborhood, she teased. Anyway, as I understand it, no one else is interested in the job, and the board really wants a woman at the helm, especially with my experience. And I have some ideas on how to improve circulation. Sounds like you've thought of everything, I said. Well, I like to be prepared, she said. No matter what happens, you know I'll support you 100%, right? I asked. She wrapped her arms around my neck and looked into my eyes. And that's only part of the reason I love you so much, she said. Think about it. If I had stayed at Statesman, there's no telling where they would have sent me, or for how long. They'd call me up in the middle of the night and send me across the country to cover some asshole politician. Then they'd send me across the country to cover something else. I was tired of living in hotels, so when I saw this opportunity, I had to jump at it. The salary probably won't go up much. In fact, the pay will probably end up going down, but it will be worth it just to live in one place. And if I don't get a job, that's okay too. I can always write online, maybe do some freelancing, or even write a book. Maybe start a blog about stupid people who cheat on their spouses. Personally, I'd rather spend all my time in bed with you. That's the plan I like best, I told her. Come on, let's go outside. After closing up the house, I plucked a few flowers from the front flower bed. If you don't mind, I'd like to make a stop along the way, I said. Oh? She asked. Do you have a girl hiding in an alley somewhere? You should know better, I said. I knew she was just teasing, but the question still bugged me. I didn't give it much thought. You're right. I'm sorry, she said. We both got burned, so it's a sore subject for me too. I was actually thinking about everything you said yesterday at the cemetery. Thought it was time to put it behind us, I said. Good for you, she replied. We pulled into the cemetery and stopped next to where Jolene's ashes were kept. We both got out of the car and walked over to the monument. I knelt down and placed the flowers in a vase next to the monument. By the way, Jolene, Ashley, and I are getting married. Just thought you might be interested to know, I said. Yes, she's dead, I know, but saying it out loud seemed therapeutic to me for some reason. Ashley stood over me and spoke up as well. And if it's okay with the kids, I plan on adopting them, she said. We said goodbye and walked back to the truck. You really want to adopt kids? I asked. Hell yes, Ashley replied. They deserve a mother they can trust. Are you okay with that? Of course, I said. In that moment, I realized that marrying Ashley was the best decision for all of us. I thought she would be a wonderful mother, and I knew Jessica would need a strong, loving mother as a teenager. We were silent almost the entire drive to Dallas, and Ashley used that time to work on her story. She seemed to be enjoying it, and I had time to reflect on the events of the past few months. Finally, we pulled up to the hotel and picked up our things. You know, Ashley said, you don't have to leave your room. The paper is paying for mine until this is over, so why don't you move in with me? I'll work on my articles, of course, but then we'll have plenty of time. I liked the idea and agreed. At least let me pay part of the bill, I said. She waved me off. You can pay for our dates, okay? She asked. And it was settled. I checked out of my room and moved in with Ashley. That night we went out for steak, danced a little, and went back to bed for another night of wild lovemaking. The next morning we arrived at the courthouse in time to get good seats. The jury was brought in from the hotel and they immediately began deliberations. Ashley did her duties as a reporter, taking testimony from the attorneys representing both sides and talking to other observers and legal experts. It didn't take long for the jury to decide the case. By 1:30, word came that the jury was ready to announce their verdict to the judge. Steve sat emotionless as the jury entered the room. The judge took his seat and asked if the jury had reached a verdict. "We have it out, Your Honor," the foreman said as he handed a piece of paper to the bailiff. The judge read the paper and folded it back up. He turned to the foreman of the jury again. "Is this a unanimous verdict?" the judge asked. The foreman answered that it was. "Very good," he said. "Can the defendant stand?" asked the judge. Steve and his attorney stood up. In People v. Steve Jenkins, the jury found the defendant Jenkins guilty on all charges and unanimously agreed to the maximum penalty provided by law, the death penalty, he said. Steve's attorney asked the jury to assess the penalty in the event of a guilty verdict, believing it would be easier to avoid the death penalty because the decision must be unanimous. If even one juror disagreed, the most Steve could get was life in prison without parole. It was a gamble, and Steve lost. Steve was found guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of manslaughter, several counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and a host of other charges that included smuggling, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and prostitution. The defense asked to poll the jurors, and the judge agreed. One by one, each of the 12 jurors said they agreed with the verdict and punishment. "Mr. Jenkins, I'm not a big fan of the death penalty, but I completely agree with the jury's decision. If ever there was a case that deserved the death penalty, this is it. I order that you be removed from this court and transferred to Huntsville State Prison, where you will be put to death in the manner prescribed by law at the earliest opportunity." "And may God have mercy on your soul," the judge said as he banged his gavel. My attorney approached me and gestured for me to follow him. We caught up with the officers escorting Steve out of the courtroom. He spoke to them for a minute, and they nodded, looking at me. Steve looked at me, his eyes red, and his body hunched like an old man's. "What are you looking at, asshole?" he said. "Right now, I'm looking at a worthless piece of shit," I said. I always wanted to know what he looked like. Now I know. My lawyer handed Steve 2 forms and told him to sign them. "What the hell?" he asked. "What the hell is this?" One form is a waiver of all parental rights to Brian and Jessica Jennings, and the other spells out the disposition of your estate upon execution. Basically, it's a will that says what's left of your estate after taxes and penalties are paid will be liquidated and divided into 3 parts. 1/3 will go to Myrna Carter, the mother of your longtime lover, 1/3 to the Brian Jennings Trust, and 1/3 to the Jessica Jennings Trust, he said. Steve looked furious, but realized his final defeat and signed both forms. He looked at me with hatred in his eyes. "Are you happy now?" he asked. "I will be," I answered him. "By the way, Ashley Marks and I are getting married, and she's agreed to adopt the kids. Enjoy the hell out of it, asshole. I look forward to pissing on your grave." My attorney thanked the officers and we left. I didn't see Steve again until the day of his execution. And yes, I did pee on his grave, but I made sure Ashley wasn't around. I don't think she would have approved. Finally, the nightmare was over, and I was looking forward to a new chapter in my and Ashley's life. Epilogue. True to her word, Ashley let me read the story she had written about me, and I was impressed. The story got a lot of publicity, and Ashley took part in several talk shows discussing the whole sordid episode. She was even approached about possibly participating in a movie, but she ultimately declined. Nevertheless, she won a Pulitzer Prize for it. The Statesman newspaper didn't want to let her go, but realized her life had taken a different path and gave her a nice bonus and recommendation when she left. The Daily Record's board of directors gladly accepted her as the new managing editor. And in the first year, the small paper's circulation tripled, prompting the company to build a new building and hire more staff. We both decided we wanted to avoid a big church wedding and got married in our backyard, inviting family and friends. Ashley's parents drove down from Austin along with a few of her closest friends from Statesman. Her dad walked her down the aisle and shook my hand warmly as he handed her to me. Brian was my best man and Jessica was Ashley's maid of honor, so it was truly a family wedding. After the vows were exchanged, the minister asked us all to turn to face the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Mr. and Mrs. William Jennings and his family to you for the first time," he said to loud applause. Brian walked over to Ashley and put his arm around her shoulders. "Welcome to the family. Mom," he said, smiling. Ashley hugged him back, tears welling up in her eyes. Jessica hugged her too. "I love you, Mom," she said. I love you too, Ashley said, hugging both kids. My dad came over and hugged us both and then reached into his pocket. I hope you enjoy your honeymoon, he said, pulling out an envelope that contained 2 tickets for a week-long cruise in the Caribbean. Thanks, Dad, Ashley and I said almost in unison. And a new adventure began. 10 months after returning from the cruise, Ashley gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. We named the boy William Frederick after my grandfather, and the girl Alicia Marie after Ashley's grandmother. On the day they were born, I happened to run into George Mason, a major politician in our neighborhood. He shook my hand and accepted my celebratory cigar. Congratulations, Bill, he said. I thanked him. By the way, he said, you know we have an election coming up. There are a few people who think you could take Steve's place on the old commission, if you're interested. After all, you were the one who brought him down. Kind of like our own version of the man who shot Liberty Valens, right? I asked. He laughed. Only this time John Wayne wasn't waiting in the shadows, he said. Thanks, but I don't think I can take a pay cut. I have 2 new mouths to feed, I said. You could still run your business, he asked. Maybe there's another reason? Well, yes, there is. Dad said something the last time we discussed the whole Steve thing, I said. What exactly? George asked. Power corrupts, I said. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, so subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.